Hi artists, and welcome back to my channel. My name is Margot and I'm a professional artist and illustrator. And in today's video, I want to teach you how to paint a very simple watercolor peony. So peonies are one of my favorite flowers because they are so elegant and so timeless, and they're so much fun to paint. But unfortunately, they get a really bad rep, and I think it's because there are a lot of layers and a lot of petals, and people seem to think that they're very difficult to paint. So what I want to do in this video is to simplify it as much as possible so that it can be a lot of fun. You can enjoy the process and feel confident in doing that. So if you're interested, keep watching. Okay, so let's start with talking about the foundation of what a peony looks like and how to draw it. So I have a piece of paper here on which I'm going to show you the bones or the way a peony is broken up at its most basic level. I like to think of the flower of a peony kind of like a teacup and saucer. So right here I kind of created what looks like a soup bowl or a teacup, and the petals are going to form around it, kind of like the saucer in a teacup set. Of course, those petals can be softer, they can be more fluid, and then eventually you can turn that saucer into softer, flowy petals, and that'll give you that signature look of a natural peony. Then from the bottom of that saucer, you'll just extend a line down for the stem. Now with that knowledge, we're going to jump in and start painting. I have a number 10 round brush, and I'm going to be using a combination of opera pink, quinacridone magenta, and maybe a little touch of red and orange as well. So we're going to start with that bowl shape, or the teacup shape that I mentioned earlier. So I'm creating the bottom of that bowl right now using these very loose and free brush strokes. I'm using a lot of water for this as well, and I'm going to alternate between pinks and purples to build some gradations of color and make it look a little bit more interesting too. Do you see a bowl forming? It's sort of like a fluffy bowl with irregular edges, and that's exactly what I'm looking for here. I'm going to let that dry, and I'm going to add the petals that are coming out from underneath and behind it. So remember that saucer shape I was talking about? So yeah, we're going to be doing that right here and adding petals from underneath and around that central bowl shape that we just made. So yeah, even with just these very few petals, you can see that we're starting to create that geometry and that closed off shape that we expect when we look at peonies. I'm going to add some larger petals underneath. So this one right here is going to stick out a little bit more, and you're going to start seeing that saucer shape that I was talking about, or that plate shape that is underneath our bowl. And we can make those edges on that petal a little bit rougher, and that'll create that really delicate, fine look that you see on peonies, where it's kind of like a frilly edge. And artists, feel free to add more pigment to certain areas of the petal while the paint is still wet, because you'll build some really nice gradations of color doing it this way. So go for it. What's the worst that can happen, right? I'm going to add another petal here to the side, and right now we're just going to add petals wherever you see negative space to try to build the fullness of that flower. So I created another petal right here, and maybe I can add one to the other side too. Maybe another one on the left side. Yeah, I think right here I could see it kind of sweeping upwards. So you kind of want the petals to radiate outwards from one central location, like a sun, where the petals are all kind of branching out from one central spot, which is the bottom of that bowl that we established at the beginning. And if you really think about it, that's where the petals are all being held together. So it really does make sense if you really think about it that way. Okay, so we're going to add some more brushwork behind the flower, or right above it, right above that bowl. And this is going to be in a very loose, wavy sort of brush style. And that's to give, again, the illusion that there are more petals layered around and wrapping around that whole flower. So the foundation for most of the flowers is already set. So now it's about building a little bit more tonal values and some more variations of color. So I'm adding some darker tones closer to the base of the flower, and that's going to help it look a little bit more three-dimensional. And maybe interspersing some little brush strokes here and there along the edges of the petal too, to kind of give them a bit more definition. So this can be really loose. You don't have to be tight here. You can be free and allow your brush to dance around on your paper. All right, I'm gonna add some darker areas, again, in the middle of that flower, closer to the middle to make it sort of stand out and make it look more three-dimensional. And artists, don't worry if you don't get it right in the first try. I mean, it takes some time to figure some of these things out. So don't be discouraged if you don't get it right in the first try. I didn't. So keep going, keep practicing, and I guarantee you'll be painting bouquets and bouquets of peonies in no time. Okay, so I'm going to add a stem by mixing some green and some opera pink to muddy that green a little bit. And I'm going to draw a stem with the tip of my brush and extend it all the way down in one sweeping brush stroke. And artists, here's where I recommend, instead of using just your wrist to create these shapes, use the entire forearm. You'll find you'll have a lot more control and have more stability by using the entirety of your arm. Now we're going to do the central part of the flower, which is really unique in a peony. So let's rehearse that first on our little piece of scrap paper. So I have my little teacup. And so here we're just going to create these little, let's try to put this down on and not mess up my painting. We're going to create these little wispy strokes that are all angled towards the base of that bowl shape. So just like the petals connect to that, these will as well. They're just going to be daintier and thinner. I'm going to mix some yellow ochre with some orange or yellow. You can really play around with what you decide to use for the central part. I would just stay in the yellow, orange, light brown kind of color family. These brush strokes are going to be very simple. So we're just creating these very quick little flicks with the paintbrush that are all angled towards the top of that stem. And feel free to vary the colors a little bit if you want. You can alternate between yellow or some orange. You can even add some green if you want. Anytime you're transitioning from one color to the next, you're taking advantage of what watercolors have to offer. Okay, so now that we've done this, I'm going to teach you how to do a variation on this peony and basically make one that is a more closed off one. And to do that, we're essentially going to just focus on the bowl shape. So remember, the first one had petals that were coming out from underneath our bowl, kind of like a saucer, but this one will not have that. It will just be layers of petals that are forming behind that bowl or in the same direction as that bowl for a more closed off peony. All right, so I'm going to add this one to the right of the larger bloom. I think there's a nice space right here where I can add that. I'm going to add some red to the color that I mixed for the previous peony, just to give it some more variation, because nothing in nature is truly exactly alike, so these peonies should be a little bit different in coloration. So let's repeat the steps that we did for the first one, starting with that bowl or teacup shape first. So I'm doing that right now. And just going to create the top of that bowl. I really love these loose brush strokes. I think it makes it feel so much more romantic and softer. So you can see that these are pretty much identical. The new one that I created was a bit smaller, and I did that intentionally to create some variation between the two. And I'm pretty much done with this flower now, so all I'm going to do is maybe add a little bit more opera rose right here to make it pop. Just give it some touches here and there to really make it sing. Maybe add a little bit more fluffiness to the back, make it extra froofy. Yeah, I like the way that looks. And the great thing about the closed off peony is we actually don't have to worry about the yellow portion in the center because that's being hidden by the petals. So we can just skip that step altogether. So this one is really easy. And then we just add the stem just like the other one. So I'm going to start right here at the base of the flower and pull that stem down. Remember, using your whole arm, not just your wrist. To finish it off, I'm going to add some leaves to make it look a little bit more natural and full. So I'm going to have a curve right here that comes down towards the stem of the second flower. I'm going to put the tip of the brush down, apply some pressure, and then release as I get closer to the stem. So we'll do it a few more times. I want to build a little bit more fullness right here. So we've got a second leaf that joins the first one. And then maybe a third one to fill a bit more of that negative space that I'm seeing right here. A little one, a little leaf. So that's pretty much done. And then maybe add another leaf right here that slopes downwards. Yeah. I'm also going to add a green leaf behind the larger flower here because I think that wherever you introduce colors throughout the painting, it helps tie the whole thing together to make it look more unified. So I think that looks really nice when you have a couple of leaves coming out and peeking out from behind the flower. Now you could be done right here, but I still see some little areas that I'd like to add to. So I think this part is at the artist's discretion. I'm going to just add some touches wherever I see an area that I'd like to make pop a little bit more. So we're done, and I'm gonna sign it, and I think you should too, because you made this, and signing it is every artist's ritual to take ownership for the effort they put into their work. So I hope you enjoyed this video and that it made the process of painting a peony a little less daunting. And hopefully next time you paint one, you'll feel a lot more confident knowing exactly how to approach it. As always, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for following, guys, and I'll see you next time.